All right, guys, welcome. Welcome back to Food for Health. My name is Sheryl McWilliams. I'm a wellness specialist here at Midcoast Parkview Health, and I'm super excited about tonight because we're doing a topic tonight that we've never really done before. We've talked about eating out before, but we've never really talked about traveling a lot. We've absolutely not talked about camping and backpacking. So I'm excited for that. And I'm excited to have our friends Lisa and Tom Walling here with us tonight. They are going to do the cooking demonstration. And I'm super stoked to try their food because they're trying some fun things.
It smells good.
It smells really good. And we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I'm
you.
going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
So I have a question. Where are you going backpacking next?
Spain.
Spain. Yeah, and how long is the trail?
It depends upon which one you do. They go from anywhere from 75 miles all the way up to over 600 miles.
So you're going for the 600 mile.
You have to do 100 miles to get the certificate.
Okay.
So, yeah, you have
So
to do that.
Tom's going for 600. Anyone want to tag along?
I'll see you later. You can join me on the Appalachian Trail.
So they're going to do the AT
Appalachian.
next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So we got some hardcore hikers here. And how do
Slow.
you do that when you're vegan? Here we go.
There we go. Okay.
All right.
Well, a lot of people so we did a lot of research online and we watched a lot of YouTube videos about eating on the trail and getting food. And a lot of backpackers stop in on, when you do a road crossing, go into like the 7-Eleven or the little grocery store, gas station, and load up on cheese sticks and meat something sticks and and all of the packaged stuff. And
Unhealthy stuff.
we just didn't want to do that. So, so this is a day's worth of food for both of us, and
That's pretty light.
it's about 2 pounds. So
2 pounds for a day, that's good.
And so on the first page, there's the resources some of the resources that we used and referred to a lot. In the bag we pre-package everything, and so we have oatmeal that we've made up, and we just put out a bunch of Ziploc bags and we measure out, this would have oatmeal, what does it say, half a cup of oatmeal, a tablespoon of ground flax, a tablespoon of hemp seeds for more protein, whatever dried fruit we wanted, and I would just mix it all up and we would just throw it in, so it was almost like a surprise breakfast every day. Nuts, and then we did 2 tablespoons of non-dairy creamer, and then we put it in the Talente jar, the Talente sorbetto. So you have to start buying ice cream first, the sorbetto. And then we have the empty jars. See, yes, you and me. And so it's lightweight and in plastic, and the lid doesn't leak, and so we pour.
Now, usually we wouldn't recommend non-dairy creamer, but when you're on the trail, you've got to have enough calories to get going. And so your food is a little more calorically dense, and so you wouldn't eat that at home. You'd probably put in some powdered soy milk. Mm-hmm. But on the trail, you need a little more salt and you need a little more calories.
We have not found powdered soy or almond.
Well,
and we
you
haven't
can find
dehydrated
it online. It's really good. And so if you're going to do this at home, try powdered soy milk, and it can be very good.
Or
But-
just use regular milk.
At home. Your
Yeah.
your almond or soy, yes.
Yeah.
How do you get this through customs? Or do you purchase when you're there?
Well, we mailed ourselves packages when we were, so the trail we did was the long trail in Vermont, and it goes from Massachusetts up to Canada, and you kind of estimate a lot of forward planning and about where you'll be at a certain time frame, so you mail yourself a box to a post office, and when you get there, then you go get your box and then you resupply that way. If you're in a larger town, city, you can go to a regular grocery store and you'll have better luck. But those little convenience stores, you're just no luck. So then we'd pour this in a Talente jar at night and we'd just cover it with water and let it soak overnight, and then we're good to go in the morning. So that was breakfast. No, we each have one. I get my own. So we'd have 2 of those. And then,
Sometimes she'll put a T or an L on it as to who it's for.
'Cause he gets more.
I might put a little more oatmeal on mine.
Yep. We started out using these cookies. They're Linny and Larry's. They're really high protein. They're basically 2 servings apiece. And let me see.
About 400.
So to eat one of these is about 450 calories. They had different flavors. And then we would combine it with a pack of almond butter. And the problem that we ran into with this after a while, after a number of days, was that you just couldn't chew and swallow it anymore because you're so thirsty. So, and it just, you eat the same thing a couple of days in a row and you're done. So then we branched out and we started dehydrating vegetables. So we've got broccoli and peas that we put in the dehydrator. We would get these, Trader Joe's has these great packages of olives. This isn't the brand we use, but the noodles, and so the ramen and cold soak. So we'd start with throwing these in the water and cold soaking these while we were hiking. And after about an hour or so, then we would add noodles. And then
if you put them close to your body, they're going to be heated up.
Okay. But we also would add the tofu. You have the recipe for the tofu jerky. And we had that cut up, and we would add that. And as water soaks into that, or that's not the right word. As it absorbs the water, it gets softer and less jerky-like. Yes?
So you can each try one of those, but you're going to be tempted to take
Yes.
2. Don't do it.
Yep. Yes, that was a good question. Yes, we're also doing that in that very same Talente jar. So that's our only dish, is that one jar. So that keeps the weight really light.
You
What?
don't know what is.
Talente. So it's in the grocery store. It's an ice cream, and it's about this size, but it's plastic with a lid, and
It's just a plastic jar with a lid that you can soak food in, that's all.
It's gelato or sorbetto.
And at home, you could use a glass jar. It's
Yep.
just when you're on the trail, you don't want to carry that because it can break easily and it weighs a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Another thing we would do for lunches is tortillas pack really well. And in our backpacks, there's the slot in the back for a water bladder. And these just slide right in there. And we would just pull one out. I forgot to bring the hummus. We've dehydrated hummus. So add some water to the hummus and then spread that in there. Throw the vegetables in, or you peanut butter and raisins or peanut butter and whatever dried fruit. Those are some of the things that we would do for lunch. And then for dinner, every time he cooked up a meal, we would dehydrate it. And so we would measure out 2 cups and weigh it, dehydrate it, and then weigh it again. And that's the amount of water that we would add. And on the label here, it says we needed a cup and a half of water. So put this in our little jar again. And that we ate right out of the bag because Tom made 2 of these. These are the window car for your windows to keep your windows cool. So he made this little packet. It's an insulator. We pop this in here, and then when we poured the hot water in, it keeps the hot water warm.
Now, isn't that slick?
And then,
No, that's a warm idea, not a cool idea.
So then
Or we
would,
could say it's a hot idea.
Yeah. So then, this is you can buy something, it's called a koozie kind of thing. It's like, it's insulated. It's the stuff that you get a big sheet of it. And
You put it underneath your windshield in the car to keep your car from overheating in the summer. And instead of buying one, they're clever and, tight as the bark on the tree. So Tom made these, and they're really slick and not as expensive as those other ones. Little duct tape, right, Tom?
Little duct tape.
That's
Staples
all
and
you
duct
need.
tape.
And mine's
There
the
you
one with
go.
the pink on it. That's how I know mine. So then you pour the hot water in here, and then we would set this aside, and then we go set up our tent or go filter water or do whatever we needed to do on the trail. So that tofu that you tried, you can buy.
How did you like the tofu?
Yeah.
Is there any left? Okay, good, good.
So
All right, I
sometimes we
want
would
some later.
just eat that on the trail as a snack, or cut it into a couple smaller pieces and add it with the noodles and the water and the vegetables for a soup. We found this vegan jerky, different flavors, and I didn't look at all the labels to see what was in it. So, but it's but the calories and the food and the snacks that you need all the time. You need about 6,000 calories, 6,000 to 8,000 calories a day hiking 10 to 15 miles.
That's amazing, isn't it? So if
that's-
you want to lose weight, come along. We'll all go.
And we still lost weight.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So everything you mentioned you do with water, so you carry your own water?
Well, we have a filter that we use, and anywhere we find water on the trail, we'd be low, we would filter the water into our water bottles. We use the smart water bottles to
smart
store
water.
the water.
And we would each carry 2 liters, two 2-liter bottles, right?
Right.
And then we had a spare that was not filtered. But every time so a saying that he taught me was that you carry your fears with you, and my fear was not having water. So every time we stopped, every time we crossed water, I was filtering and getting water because we use it for every meal. And that's the only thing we had to do was heat up water to cook any of this. I brought some of these to share. This is good to go. This is a Maine-made backpacking product, and they're really good. But this
What's
is
the downside?
the downside is that these meals are at least $10 a piece for a dinner. So this is just a single serving dinner. The double packs are $15 to $20 for 2 people, and then the sodium in this is 380 milligrams of sodium. You need sodium because you're sweating it off, but
If your blood pressure's up, you can restrict sodium, or you can just take a hike. That'll work.
yep.
I'd be using my bags too to heat up self-dehydrated stuff, so the bag you can continue.
Yeah, reusing the bag. Yep, that's a good idea. Yeah.
And these meals, we control the seasonings and the salt, and it's a leftover from a dinner. And you don't have to have a fancy dehydrator. I have a cheap Walmart Nesco dehydrator that I've had for 10 years. Works great.
And this one he actually did in the oven on a low, like
200 degrees in the oven, I dehydrated a meal.
And some of the things that we've dehydrated, that's on another list here. The macaroni and cheese, we've dehydrated that. Lentil bolognese with the noodles in it. Pumpkin, squash, chilies. Spaghetti and anything. If you have like a squash sauce on it, or tomato sauce, or whatever, basil, or pesto, anything, we've just dehydrated that all together. Any kind of stir fry that we've done, we dehydrated that. We even dehydrated something from a Thai restaurant and had that on the trail. But you have to do that like one of your first days out because of the oil that's in it. So we had to do that right away because we didn't want it to go rancid.
That's the one thing you find out. If you add a lot of oil to your food and dehydrate it, it goes rancid. And so you're better off to not do that. Now, usually we talk about oil-free, and I can get into why that is. If you're exercising really vigorously, that isn't as critical. If you're not exercising vigorously, oil blocks the body's ability to dilate arteries. But that's not true if you're exercising at 70% of your maximum for an extended period of time. And when you're climbing some of those hills on the AT, you are certainly in that range. And you overcome the body's inability to dilate arteries in the presence of refined fats while you're doing that.
And we've taken some of this stuff just on a day hike. We've just thrown it in our pack and just gone just for a small hike and cooked up lunch at the top.
Before we did these actually on the trail, we tried this all at home.
Yeah.
So we knew it worked.
And then another trick that we've learned is that, you know, when you go to a store and they have all these great little condiments, pick them up, because so we've got honey, relish, and this is really good on these carrot dogs that we're going to share with you. These little packs of olive oil, there are some people on the trail that we met who just took a bottle of olive oil with them and just drank that for their food to get their calories in. And that was one of the most nauseating things I ever witnessed, was just drinking olive oil. And then there was another guy who had, you know, those little instant oatmeal packets. He just opened that up and just ate it dry, and then would drink water on the side. So
No thanks.
no, I like food too much. So
I'm sorry, you may have already answered this question, but when you talk about dehydrating, what are you using for a tool? A standard dehydrating machine?
I have a Nesco dehydrator.
Round.
It's round.
Repeat the question so that
oh, sorry.
Asking what kind of a tool I use for a dehydrator. I have a Nesco dehydrator, which is relatively inexpensive. I picked it up at Walmart about 10, 15 years ago. And you can spend anywhere from $100 to $300 for the fancier dehydrators. Does the job. Your oven
This
works great, because I did a whole
was done in the
meal in the oven at 200 degrees. I just put down parchment paper to put it on and let it dry. After about 2 or 3 hours, I would flip that over and kind of break it up so it all dries out. And it's about 4 or 5 hours, I end up with dinner,
And this
ready
is
for the trail.
this is
If
that-
you do it overnight, put it on 180, and you can just leave it overnight and it'll dry out just fine. An oven is a really good dehydrator. There are various settings on ovens, but you can dehydrate in any oven. A dehydrator is lots of fun. We use it extensively. We bought a more expensive one, and after 10 years, the fan went out. I just replaced the fan. But Walmart sells some good dehydrators. Yes, question?
What is the main benefit of dehydrating?
Well, you take the water out, and then when you're backpacking, you don't have to carry the water. You just add it as you go. So it lightens the food. The other reason that dehydrating is good is it's very easy to store dehydrated food. If you vacuum pack it, it will keep indefinitely. My wife and I dehydrate tomatoes. We used to do a lot of canning of tomatoes. Now we grow plum tomatoes. We grow Juliets, which are wonderful tasting, and we just quarter them, lay them out on the dehydrator sheet, dehydrate them, and then pack them in quart jars, vacuum pack them, and they'll stay good for 2 or 3 years. And if you want to use them, you can rehydrate them and have them chunky. Or if you want to have tomato sauce, you throw them in the blender and blend it to a powder, skins and seeds and everything, and you can make a really rich tomato sauce. And it's super easy, and they keep really well if they're vacuum packed. If you want a vacuum packer, you can go buy one that's electric, but I wouldn't. There's a little device called a pump and seal, P-U-M-P-N seal. It's like $30, and they work really well for vacuum packing in bags. You can do it in bags, or you can do it in glass jars, which we prefer, with a canning lid on it, and it works beautifully.
So on dehydrating, these are both 2 cups of soup, 2 full cups. And it's like, I'll pass it around. It's like really light.
It's
super
light.
We store those in a quart-size freezer bag, and I have a bag in a freezer, and that's where I put all my dehydrated meals.
Yeah.
Keep them in the freezer.
Question?
Can you say something about the nutritional value?
Yes, nutritional value, a great question. If you buy greens that were grown in California and they're shipped here, broccoli or kale or collards, you lose about 30% of its nutritive value. If it's frozen, flash frozen in the field, and you buy it in the store in a bag, you lose about 10% of the nutritive value. kept in the freezer up to a year. After that, it deteriorates. If you can it, you lose about 30 to 40% right up front. If you dehydrate it, it's around 10 to 15%, and then vacuum pack it. So it's pretty close to freezing, flash freezing. It's better than fresh if it's grown across country and shipped. If you get it locally, of course, fresh picked is the very best. Great question, though. Dehydrating is a really good way to preserve long-term if you vacuum pack it. Yeah.
Not having ever dehydrated, is it that the dehydrator is quicker than doing it in the oven?
No, it's not. It's just in an oven you need a little bit higher temperature. And I'm trying to think of the ovens that have a fan with them. What's the name? Convection oven. If you have a convection oven, you can dry faster than in a standard oven at a lower temperature. You'll notice if you're using a convection oven and you set it for 300, when you turn it to convection, it'll drop to like 250, 270 because you need a lower temperature when you have a fan blowing. And that's essentially what a dehydrator is low temperature. They usually don't go over 180, but they have a fan. And I use a dehydrator for lots of things. I made granola last night in a dehydrator. Why? I never have to worry about it burning. And using a lower temperature, you have less glycation. And of course, we've talked about that many times. And less glycation, you're going to have a better product.
So
I know it's not the main focus here, but I've never been here. Do you mind just a 2-second explanation of what glycation?
Sure. Glycation is a process that occurs in our bodies, and it occurs in food when we cook it at high temperature. And glycation is the attachment of sugar to proteins or fats in a non-enzymatic, irreversible manner. When you toast bread, you're glycating it. When you fry something, you're glycating it. If you take a baked potato, you take a potato and you boil it. You get 17 kilounits of advanced glycated end products per 100 grams. If you French fry it, it goes to 1,544. And what's the problem with glycation? Glycation changes the proteins and the fats and stiffens them. Now, do you do any building? Ever built a house? No? Painted houses. So if you were building a house and you ordered your lumber and all the 2x4s showed up and they were brittle and twisted, you'd ship it back. Well, that's what you're doing when you glycate your proteins and your fats. You're delivering them to the body in a changed form. You then absorb them, and it causes inflammation in the body as the body tries to sort out what it can use and what it can't. This can also happen in your body if you're a diabetic, or if you're not a diabetic and eat a high sugar diet. Non-enzymatic, you raise the sugar level in the body, in the blood, or in the tissues. It causes glycation, and glycation is one of the major causes of aging. You're talking about glycation when you talk about cataracts. That's glycating the protein in the lens. If you glycate the protein in your joints, you accelerate arthritis. If you glycate the collagen in your bones, you're going to make your bones more brittle and you'll be more susceptible to osteoporotic fractures. If you glycate the arteries, you've heard of hardening of the arteries, that's from glycation largely. We see this in diabetics, but also in non-diabetics. So it happens in the food at high temperature, it happens in the bodies in the presence of high sugar concentration. Question, Kathy?
Does it happen when it's dehydrating, or does it lower it?
It's much lower when you dehydrate because you're cooking at a lower temperature, but he's dehydrating at 200, which is pretty close to 180, and you get good dehydration. If you're going to dehydrate greens, you do it at a lower temperature, and at a lower temperature, it's even better. It preserves more of the nutritive value. Yeah.
And a lot of ovens don't go that low
Yeah.
that a dehydrator does.
Yeah.
Most ovens will start at about 160.
If you can get a dry day, which we don't have a lot of in Maine, but if you get a dry day with a nice west wind, you can dehydrate right out in the sunshine. Yeah, on a screen.
I had somebody tell me this week that they had started freeze drying some foods.
Freeze drying is an excellent way to do it. My son has a freeze dryer. Fortunately, it was given to him because it's about $2,000. Yeah, so I stick with dehydrator. But freeze drying works really well, and the nutritive value is even higher when you freeze dry. And it's a lighter product, but I'm glad they didn't bring it up because I don't have $2,000 to buy myself, much less buy one for you.
So these are freeze-dried mangoes. And
Yeah.
they're like, there's
Pass that
nothing-
around. I mean,
there's
it's light
nothing
as
to
a
it.
feather. Oh, Marjorie, you missed it. That was my
So,
fault.
there's a
Bad shot.
There's a recipe for the tofu jerky. There's a recipe for that. And then the one soup, the Fast Fiesta soup, this just amazed us when the first time we made it. It's literally 2 cans of diced tomatoes with green chilies, a can of whole kernel corn, and a can of dried black beans. Not dried, a can of drained black beans. And you put it all in a pot, and then we're like, well, what are the seasonings? What goes in it? No seasonings. And it's really, really, really flavorful. And I'll bet you could use your tomatoes instead of canned.
Oh, sure.
Canned.
Absolutely. And you don't have to dehydrate it. You can just eat it.
Yep. And then it says shredded cheddar cheese and sour cream. That was part of the recipe, but we use yogurt and then the cheese saucy stuff from that he's made here before. We use that. Or sometimes we cheat and buy the
Cashew sour cream.
cashew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
And then we also go camping. And so Tom's going to share one of our favorite camping meals with you.
And you can use it July 4th weekend coming up, or tomorrow. It's the carrot dogs. I've got the recipe from Forks Over Knives, and I cheated. All the liquid ingredients, right here I put in. Then all the dry ingredients.
So the
which
liquid
is
ingredients.
Liquid would be the broth, cider vinegar, soy sauce. I use Bragg's aminos, maple syrup, and then where is it? Liquid smoke. I don't see it on there.
It's not on there.
Well, add it in.
Add it in.
How much?
Half a teaspoon of liquid smoke.
It makes a world of difference.
It does.
So write that in there, half a teaspoon of liquid smoke. Don't forget that.
Just put the dry in with the wet, and the carrots. When I was a carnivore, the hot dogs never filled the buns. This is your chance to have the hot dogs fit the bun. So I've already peeled and cut the carrots to fit my Frankfurter buns. So I mix up the marinade.
That's because he's an engineer. So his hot dogs have to fit his buns.
These are, then you parboil the carrots till they're fork tender. Add the marinade. Zip that. I think the directions say 4 to 12 hours. The longer, the better. So if you can go 24 hours, and then, of course, it's in a bag, periodically rotate it and flip it.
So these go in our refrigerator in our camper, and then we just put them on the grill, and just enough to warm them up, and then you got to have the little black lines on there.
Yes.
Black lines won't hurt once in a while,
No.
especially if you're hiking.
And then put whatever you want on your carrot dogs, relish, mustard, sauerkraut.
So what I want to take about.
So
And they're going to even let you try one, but they're not this big, don't worry. Yeah.
Excuse me, I just want to grab, can we get those?
Do you have your toothpicks?
We got plates and these things.
All right.
I did the same thing, but I used the baby carrots.
All right, come along.
Then
We need
today,
some more
I put them on the griddle.
Yeah, just put 2 on. They don't need that many. Save some for me. Come on up now, folks. Come get your carrots.
So before we let you go, we just want to talk with you a little bit about eating out. So we've talked about backpacking and camping and traveling. We want to talk a little bit about. So when you find yourself traveling, you're on the road, you're on a road trip, you're on an aircraft, you're, whatever, and you're wanting to maintain a plant-based diet, it is possible. It does take some pre-thinking, right? So when you think about eating plant-based fast food, that can be a little bit harder, right? But there are options. So you think about, a sandwich, a vegetarian or plant-based sandwich from Subway. You think about, some of your ethnic foods, particularly Mexican food. You can get it without the cheese. Asian food is an option. You do have to be careful with Thai because of the sauces. A lot of times with Thai food, they use shrimp-based sauces. And you just ask them no shrimp sauce or no fish sauce. So know that when you're traveling, you can do that. In our family, if we're taking a road trip, we'll often just, instead of swinging into the restaurant, we'll swing into the grocery store. And we grab fruit, and I'll wash it right there. Or other things just right in the grocery store. We'll get the greens. You can buy salad greens now in the plastic bin. Well, that's a bowl. Everyone gets their own plastic bin, and we'll put some salad dressing on it. So just know that you can do things. If you go out to a restaurant, to a sit-down restaurant, many restaurants now all over the nation are offering vegetarian options. Okay, vegetarian is not the same as plant-based, right? So you can ask them for it to have no dairy. If there is nothing on the menu at all, ask to speak to the chef. They love it. I've only been turned down once, and it was at a very fancy restaurant, and I wasn't turned down. They were slam-packed, and he's like, "Can you come back in an hour? This would be so much fun." Because chefs are very creative people. They love to create wonderful things with food, but when they're in most restaurants, they are held by the menu. And if you come in as a plant-based eater and you ask them to prepare you a dish that is a plant-based dish, most of them get really excited because they get to turn on those creative juices, which is not something that they normally get to do. So don't be shy or uncomfortable to ask a restaurant if they can prepare a plant-based dish for you, even if you don't see it on the menu. I have asked this of restaurants for years, and like I said, only once, did I. It wasn't a no, it was a wait an hour and then I can do that. And then he came and he sat down and we sort of picked out things together and he made it and he came back, "Well, what do you think?" So it's fun for them. So don't be shy about that. Just know that if you choose a plant-based lifestyle, you're choosing it for a reason. It's because you're choosing health, right? And it can be really, really good, really tasty. But it does require a little bit of planning. Particularly if you're traveling, and especially if you're backpacking and camping. But it's totally doable. And that whole traveling thing, it's fun not just for you, but for them as well. All right.
Yeah. Every summer, our family takes a week and goes camping. And we do whole food plant-based over a campfire. And, it takes some planning, but the food is great. And it's an extended family because I've got 3 sons and 10 grandchildren, and then everybody wants to bring their friends, and we end up with about 30 people, and that's a lot of food, but it's good, and everybody comes back for more. So you can do it, you just have to plan ahead.
Sheryl, what do vegetarians eat that plant-based nutrition?
Okay, so a vegetarian diet is plants plus dairy plus eggs, okay, dairy and eggs. vegan is just plants, but what we're recommending is vegan without ultra-processed foods, vegan whole food. There was an article just a few days ago in the New York Times about ultra-processed foods. They took a group of people and they put them on the usual American diet, which is ultra-processed, and everybody on that program gained 2 pounds in 2 weeks. They switched them to a whole, not a plant-based diet, but just a standard diet, no processed food, and they all lost 2 pounds. The biggest problem that we have today with our diets is ultra-processed foods. Lots of oil, lots of sugar, and the fibers taken out, and Oreos and chips, and on it goes. And you just put on weight. I see an incredible amount of something called fatty liver disease or steatohepatitis and diabetes. And all of these things come from a diet that's low in fiber and high in ultra-processed foods. If I can take a diabetic and put them on 50 grams or more of fiber a day and eliminate oil and refined fats, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, their diabetes will go away within a few weeks. Diabetes is caused, type 2, caused by too much fat in the pancreas. The only way to get it out is cut refined fats and cut refined sugars. And if you do that diligently and slim down, it's amazing what can happen. But you can be on a plant-based diet, a vegan diet, and be eating trash and be sick. Or you can go on a whole food plant-based, which is essentially you take the food out of the garden and you put it on your plate with minimal change except seasoning. What was done to these carrots? Seasoned. That's it. Did they taste good? I thought so. And so the more natural and the more high fiber the food, the better you're going to do and the less you're going to need meat. And so when you're eating out, that's what you want. When you're backpacking, you can add in some of those refined sugars and refined fats because you're burning 7,000 calories a day. If you were going to eat just straight bread, bread's about 100 calories a slice. Okay, now you got to eat 70 slices of bread. Now you're not going to get out of camp. You're going to need the outhouse meal. You got to eat some refined foods to get down the trail. But most of us eat like we're hiking and we don't get out of our chair.
Right. Except to hike to the TV.
One thing about the refined sugars and stuff when you're backpacking, you gotta carry it, so you don't. So that was
right.
One thing. The other thing was like the protein of like a hot dog versus the carrots.
Yeah, so protein is a really interesting thing. If you look at the studies on protein, the first dietary recommendation on protein that in recent history was in the 1800s. There was a German physician, I think his name was Voigt, and he recommended 120 grams of protein a day. And the reason he did that is because he went into a German town and figured out how much protein the average German was eating, and he said what's good for the Germans is good for the world. During the Depression, they, of course, had shortages of food and not enough calories, and they thought, well, how little protein can you get by with and not have a problem? And they went all the way down to 25 to 30 grams of protein a day and found no problem. Well, what they actually did is they thought, oh, that's way too low, so we'll double it. And 30 times 2, you're at 60, and the average man weighed about 150 pounds then. Think of the difference between now and then. Well, that's about 70 kilos, so they said, well, a gram per kilo. That's where the original idea came for protein and how much you need. But then they found out that's really too much, and now we're recommending less than a gram per kilo today, partially because we all are way overweight. But protein is not an issue if you're eating enough calories. You hear not of protein deficiency, but protein calorie deficiency. And the reason for that is if you don't get enough calories, your body burns protein or reprocesses protein to provide sugar to your brain so it will continue to run. Protein is a non-issue. It's in every vegetable. There is protein in carrots, not a lot, but there's enough. If you're eating a wide variety of grains and beans and fruits and vegetables, you're going to get protein, and you'll get enough. If you're hiking, you may need a little bit more, but none of their foods were really high protein other than that tofu, which is beans. You're not going to suffer if you have good absorption of protein and if you're getting enough calories. Anyone here not getting enough calories? Most of us are getting more than we need. Question.
So I get confused with, when we get older, there's that concern of sarcopenia,
Yeah, that's muscle wasting.
Right.
Sarcopenia is a real problem, and it's primarily from not enough exercise. They did a study in the VA hospital in California in Sepulveda. They took 3 men that were 100 years of age, and they put them all to exercising, and every single one of them built muscle.
So it's not the protein, it's the...
It's not a lack of protein unless you have a malabsorption of protein, which is very rare. It does happen. In 35 years, I've had one patient who was malabsorbing protein, and he happened to be a vegetarian, actually a vegan. So what did I do? I put him on a hot dog substitute called Big Franks, which he loved. They were just plant-based protein, and he'd eat 2 or 3 a day, and it took care of it. Yeah.
So Tim, is that true for women as well?
Yeah, women need less protein than men, unless they're nursing or pregnant. Anyone here?
Adding muscle.
Oh yeah, women can add muscle too. They just have to exercise and eat enough calories. Yeah, you can build muscle no matter what your age is. Yeah, you just got to exercise. And here's the truth: as you age, it's harder to maintain the muscle loss, and it's easier to lose it and harder to gain it. But you can still do it. Yeah. Question.
What are refined oils?
Refined what?
Refined fats, what are they?
Okay, refined fats, that's oil. On a plant-based diet, that's oil. I mean, what do you make oil out of? You make it out of safflower oil, that's safflower seeds. You make it out of soybeans. What did you do with the fiber? What did you do to the nutrients? You make it out of corn oil. Where'd all the fiber go? Nature packs fat with fiber. Avocados, are they rich in fiber? You bet they are. Seeds, are they rich in fiber? Yes. Why does nature do that? To protect the fat from degeneration. But if you eat the fat as an oil, you miss all the other nutrition and you absorb it more rapidly. And when you absorb your calories too fast, the body can't get them out into the periphery for storage, so it dumps them in the liver and the pancreas. So if I'm reversing diabetes, fiber up to 50 grams or more, cut the refined fats, cut the oils, and cut the sugar, because sugar, when you eat more than you need, the body changes it to fat. And then we've got the problem. Diabetes is not caused from excess sugar consumption, it's caused from too much fat in the pancreas. Too much fat in the pancreas kills beta cells which make insulin. You also get insulin resistance, but the major problem is you don't have the ability to make insulin. Your insulin level is lower than it should be when your sugar is high. Early on in diabetes, you have very high insulin levels and insulin resistance. By the time you're actually diagnosed, your ability to make insulin is cut in half or more, and then you run a sugar of 400 and you have a very low insulin level. You can't fix it. The only way to fix it is change your diet and lose weight. I'm seeing more and more patients with diabetes who are barely overweight, but you take a picture of their liver and their pancreas and they're packed with fat because they've been eating an ultra-processed diet. And if you want to fix that, no processed foods, very high fiber. Sometimes you even have to supplement fiber to slow the absorption of the calories, to get the fat out of the liver and the pancreas to fix the problem. It's not easy, but it can be done in most cases. Sometimes with very advanced diabetes, you have to use a little bit of insulin for a while because they're just not making it. But if you do that, they have to be on a very strict diet if they're ever going to get off the insulin. Yeah. Question?
If you're concerned about a patient being protein deficient, is there a test to?
Sure. You can do a chemistry profile. That's a CMP, Comprehensive Metabolic Panel. On that is an albumin and a total protein. And if their albumin and their total protein are normal, they're not malnourished, they're getting adequate protein. In an advanced stage, with people not eating well, sometimes in order to get healing, you have to add protein to their diet. And sometimes I will, in those cases with very elderly people and decubiti or bed sores, I'll put them on egg whites. That's the highest biological value protein, and that will bring their protein up. But that's usually not needed. But if you need it, that egg whites do work.
The cholesterol is not in the whites, it's in
Right,
the yolk.
right. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Tom and Lisa, and come again.